You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all set to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen to the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie, and I'm proud of the life I have, surrounded by military and aware just how big the world really is. I have a unique perspective on life and the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View. Alright, how's everybody doing out there tonight? Yes, it's Jessie. Yes, I miss you when we're not talking. Yes, this is the late commercial-free version. Welcome to chaos. No, the world isn't any more chaotic than it was yesterday. My life has just gotten more chaotic. Now, do I really need to put out a reminder? Be careful where you take selfies, folks. I have seen not one, but two news stories in the past 48 hours about people falling to their deaths trying to take the ultimate selfie. Really? Let's not. A selfie is not worth your life. I don't know how else to put that any better, any clearer, or any more succinctly. A selfie is not worth your life. Alright, public service announcement over. We are going to talk about what's going on in the world. Alright, there is some controversy coming out of the U.S.-North Korean summit. Surprise, surprise, not. Oh yes, surprise, surprise, not. Now, first of all, let's get with the not controversial parts. Pompeo has reminded everyone there will be no sanctions relief, none, until North Korea denuclearizes. He didn't say take a step towards denuclearizing. He didn't say makes overtures that they will. He said until they do. We're going to get denuclearization. Only then will there be relief from the sanctions. Now that doesn't mean we are free from the threat of a nuclear test from North Korea. By the way, this isn't the first time we paused these military drills in South Korea. For all of you freaking out, we did it in the 90s when we were negotiating with them then. And it takes us about 4 to 6 months to spin them back up. It is not something that is absolutely horrific. It is not anything insane. Now, our military exercises with Japan are definitely continuing. And where it might cause is a diplomatic rift more than a military rift. Because South Korea is like, you didn't talk to us about this in advance. However, the Pentagon did issue a brief statement today saying Mattis had discussed the summit outcome with his South Korean counterpart, including they can work together to fulfill the president's guidance on military exercises. I can pretty well tell you what's going to happen. They're not going to do the major exercises. But they are still going to do readiness drills and things. They're just going to do them more frequently on smaller scales. They're not going to be so intimidating and provocative. They only do them twice a year anyway. So if I don't see how this is a huge deal. Now, there's another bit of chaos coming out of this. Critics have attacked President Trump after North Korea released footage of the U.S. president saluting a North Korean general. It's called courtesy. He was returning a salute from the general. And while it's unusual, and I'd say on some levels it could be inappropriate, he was following military courtesy and customs. So even though it was a little misplaced, he was trying to be nice. And it is common courtesy. When a military official from another government salutes, you return that salute. Now, Korean state media has released video of Trump reaching out to shake the hand of the Minister of People's Armed Forces, who instead saluted. The two then reversed gestures with Trump saluting and the general reaching out to shake hands. The pair eventually shook hands. It was a bit of an awkward moment, because the U.S. and North Korea are still technically at war. For those of you who need a reminder, and I hope none of my listeners do, but for those of you who need a reminder, the Korean War ended in a ceasefire. In other words, the war is not over. It could technically go hot at any time. And that is not something we want, but it's something that could happen. I don't know how else to explain it, but it could. Now, the salute, according to military protocol, is a sign of respect and mutual admiration. And yeah, it's a little bit of a signal that maybe he shouldn't have sent to a North Korean general. But they are taught to salute, not shake hands. And that's just their culture, because it is a very militaristic society. No offense, he probably shouldn't have done it. Get over it. It's not the first mistake. All right? All right. Now, the South Korean ambassador and his pick to be the ambassador is Admiral Harris. And we have played clips of Admiral Harris on here before. Let me see if I can, about South Korea. So, let me see if I can find one for you, just to give you an idea. And I'm working on getting one pulled up. But yeah, Admiral Harris, when he was wearing the uniform, was very much willing to speak his mind. I don't think anything has changed. Here was his thoughts on Kim Jong-un.
During his despotic regime, Kim Jong-un has tested more missiles than his father and grandfather combined. And he's on a record pace to conduct more tests in 2017 than in any other year. In fact, the July 4th ICBM launch by North Korea was its 10th ballistic missile test event this year. Yet another reminder that North Korea is not only the most immediate threat to our alliance, but also a clear and present danger to global peace and stability. Let me emphasize that word, global.
And that's a very good comment. I mean, I don't know what else to put it as. All right, here's another Admiral Harris clip.
The alarming behavior exhibited by the Kim Jong-un regime is not just a threat to our friends in South Korea, it's a threat to Japan, it's a threat to China, it's a threat to Russia, it's a threat to U.S. allies in the Philippines, Australia, and Thailand, and it's a threat to the United States. It's a threat to the entire world because North Korea's missiles point in every direction. And it's the reason that we call for all nations to implement far stronger economic sanctions against Pyongyang. Kim Jong-un is on a quest for nuclear weapons on the one hand and the means to deliver them intercontinentally on the other. Separate capabilities where he continues to make substantial progress. As the world saw on July 4th, North Korea now has an intercontinental ballistic missile capability. That means North Korean missiles have the range to reach North America and Hawaii.
Now, let's say we know that those missiles can reach, okay? Just accept. However, there's been a good breakthrough that hasn't hit the U.S. news cycle yet. The two Koreas agreed to completely restore military communication lines. The marathon talks were held at a North Korean building in Panmunjom to follow up on the April 27th Inter-Korean Summit declaration that calls for joint efforts to alleviate military tensions and practically eliminate the danger of war. Yes. The two sides also discussed halting all hostile acts against each other, turning the northern limit line, a de facto sea border, into a peace sea, and other issues that the April declaration touched on. The issue of recovering the remains of those in the demilitarized zone who died during the 1950 to 53 Korean War was also brought up. You don't understand how big restoring those lines of communication was. We were down to what they call towing the line. Now that meant walking up to the concrete barrier that is the military demarcation line. It's the physical, literally, the actual border. And literally standing there and shouting the message across and waiting for North Korea to show up with a video camera to record it. That's what they were down to for communications. And earlier expectations said the two sides failed to reach a consensus. However, they agreed to continue, but that's been, those expectations that they failed to reach a consensus have been taken back, and they said they did. The fact that the military authorities of South and North Korea held such a dialogue in and of itself is huge. I mean, this is good news. North Korea is expected to start taking denuclearization measures soon. Would you like to know how soon? Yeah, I thought you would. How about 2 to 3 weeks? And that's from former Unification Minister Lee Young-sok, who's a senior researcher at a private think tank in Songjung Institute. And he made that remark during a forum hosted by the Institute, just south of Seoul. And he also took a view that the United States, in line with the North's implementation of such measures, will come up with rudimentary steps it should come up with rudimentary steps it could take to ease sanctions. However, I'd like to say, keep up the pressure until every last scrap is gone and we have inspected the entire country. Okay? It needs to be an irreversible step. Alright, that's just, we can't accept a North Korea that can rebuild their nuclear arsenal again. Now, please keep in mind the brutalness of this regime. It's something I cannot stress enough. Remember, Donald Trump himself, in his speech to the UN, brought up the human rights. Let me get a couple clips pulled up about that. Because their human rights, let's face it, are appalling. Their human rights are absolutely appalling.
Since the so-called armistice, there have been hundreds of North Korean attacks on Americans and South Koreans. These attacks have included the capture and torture of the brave American soldiers of the USS Pueblo, repeated assaults on American helicopters, and the 1969 drowning of a U.S. surveillance plane that killed 31 American servicemen. The regime has made numerous lethal incursions in South Korea, attempted to assassinate senior leaders, attacked South Korean ships, and tortured Otto Warmbier, ultimately leading to that fine young man's death.
That wasn't his only take on North Korea. Let's take another listen to another clip.
The regime has interpreted America's past restraint as weakness. This would be a fatal miscalculation. It is our responsibility and our duty to confront this danger together, because the longer we wait, the greater the danger grows and the fewer the options become.
Thankfully, one more clip. Let me just get it open. My soundboard's being a little bit stubborn tonight. That's not really news, but it's just being a touch stubborn. We're gonna get it for you. Don't worry. I always win these battles. So, our own President Trump has called out North Korea on multiple occasions for their brutality. Their brutality is legendary. Their brutality is something no one should tolerate.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset.
Okay, this is a whole speech. Give me just a second, see if I have a clip. I am not finding the clip I want, but let's just take my word for it. President Trump has called out North Korea on multiple occasions. He has pointed out their horrific human rights record. Remember, at the State of the Union, yes, the State of the Union, he recognized a North Korean defector and had him stand up with the crutches that he walked out of North Korea and halfway across China to freedom with. Please don't forget that in addition, he has not backed down. I mean, whatever you think of him, maybe he's onto something. Let's get on with some other news. What is going on in the Middle East? Well, we're back to Yemen. U.S. rejected UAE request for support to capture the Yemeni port. Yes, we turned down the United Arab Emirates. U.S. rejected requests from the United Arab Emirates to provide military support to the Saudi-led coalition's operation to capture the Houthi-held port city of Hodeidah. The U.S. government rejected the coalition's request for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance support, as well as the use of a minesweeper vessel to help clear the areas of Houthi mines. Yes, there was a request for the minesweeper. It was rejected. The UAE did say the coalition is waiting for a minesweeper from France. The Emirati official said the request had been rejected within the last 24 hours, and while the U.S. did not give a reason for the rejection, the official believed the request was denied because of congressional opposition over concerns about potential civilian casualties. Remember, the House and a third of the Senate is up for election. The last thing Congress wants to see is the United States attached to civilian casualties. Secretary of Defense Mattis strongly supports the efforts of the new UN Special Envoy to bring all sides of the conflict to the negotiating table. However, we are not supporting the mission to take back the port. Now, Libya is supposed to be close to taking one of the final holdouts there. And Libya is something we haven't talked about. Alright. On the front lines of their campaign to take the eastern coastal city of Derna, forces under Libyan commander Khalifa Haftar, they face a few dozen remnant fighters. Now, seizing Derna would complete the takeover of Libya's east by Haftar, who built up his Libyan National Army during a 3-year campaign for Benghazi, it's Libya's second largest city. But Derna fighting could also undercut United Nations-led efforts to stabilize Libya by reconciling the eastern-based factions aligned with Haftar and rival groups located in the country's more populous west. So we're discussing a city of 125,000 people back in 2016. The Libyan Nationalist Army tightened its blockade and appears to be close. Haftar's opponents in the city deny having associations with jihadists, and they say they're fighting to preserve their independence and counter military rule. The unverified social media footage appears to show the Libyan National Army forces carrying out a summary killing in Derna. Well, there's been a call for an investigation of the footage, and troops have been ordered to hand over detainees to competent authorities. The Libyan National Army also says it's doing what it can to restore supplies and services to Derna, Mediterranean port, and encourage the displaced to return. The shops are closed because they lack food, and there's a little bit of electricity, but not always. Some civilians have been prevented. Reports are some civilians have been prevented from leaving, and that there's an increase in arbitrary detentions. Water supplies in Derna have been cut since a desalination plant was shelled several weeks ago, and the only hospital in the city was closed on June 5th. People are wondering what they're going back to. All right. Well, folks, that is it for tonight's special, short, commercial-free version. I apologize for not being with you for the whole hour, but I must remind you, I'm moving. Yes, for those of you who don't know what a military move is like, maybe I'll give you some insights, but I'm gone.